can you guys talk a little bit about how that works? You know, it seems that when we read it in the press that the government of Ireland has, you know, celebrated its authors and promoted them and put money into the literary arts, and for many years writers, some of them who I knew, moved to Ireland so they wouldn't have to pay any taxes on the work. Is that still very much on the ascendancy, or have things been clipped back with the recent troubles?
They did clip it back to a certain extent. There used to be that policy, which was that anybody engaged in artistic activity could live in Ireland. Southern Ireland.
Yes, that's right. The 26 counties.
The 26 counties rather than the 6 counties. That anybody could live there and there would be no tax on royalties or tax on anything like that. They moved it back in instalments, back to I think 100,000, and then back to when they moved back to 100,000, I think you two immediately moved all their royalty things to Holland. Patriotism.
They discovered some Dutch heritage.
They did. And I think it's down to 40,000 now, which is, I think, for the vast majority of people engaged in artistic activity, a dream of a salary. So they have, I mean, just when they were closing down things, that artistic exemption, just every so often somebody would raise that.
Yeah, do you think that encourages young people to write? I think the culture of, you know, nurturing writers produces writers.
The general atmosphere, I mean, it's very unlikely. I think the idea that you would make that much money is so unlikely. You know, that 40,000 a year is now the exemption. And as Chris is saying, that is a dream salary for any writer. You know, in other words, nobody's really going to have to worry about going above that exemption if you're making your living as a writer, above that level. But what does help, you know, so that in itself couldn't be an incentive because it's pie in the sky in a way. What does help, I think, is that, you know, there's an organisation like the Arts Council which provides, is there to provide bursaries upon application, and not to everybody who applies, but there's a system by which emerging writers can be nurtured in a certain sense. And that, you know, I suppose that must provide some level of encouragement. I know it did, you know, I can speak personally, it did for me. When I was finishing, or hoping to finish Solace, I needed to basically, I felt like I needed to buy some time where I could just focus on the book. And so I sent in an application form and asked for a couple of €1,000 as a grant through their system, and I was awarded that money, and that made all the difference. That meant that I could take 3 or 4 months away from journalism to try and finish the book. And so, you know, that was before I published anything. So that kind of encouragement is important, I think, for emerging writers.
What a progressive society. If you're in America, people just throw things at you and say, stop it. Someone else, question. Yes, sir, right here.
There is something in 2013 called the Gathering, bringing people back to Ireland. That there might be an artistic component of that. Yeah.
Tony, you better check your DNA and see if you've got any Irish blood stuck inside that cold heart. The Gathering. Someone else. Oh yes, right at the very back, that's Mr. Kevin Hunsinger from Green Apple Books. Thank you, Green Apple Books, for being with me. Green Apple Books is the greatest bookstore in the world, and I was an employee there in 1989, just for a brief thing, and that's when the earthquake struck. I was standing in the bookstore right at the front, right beneath the bestsellers. And all the bestsellers fell on top of me when I was standing in the middle of the earthquake. Yeah, Green Apple. Anyway, Kevin, your question.
That's how are bookstores, independent booksellers, faring in Ireland? You know, we're under a lot of pressure in the United States.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. The only independent bookshop in Belfast, pretty much, you know, the most important one in Northern Ireland, just closed.
Oh, no.
It was run by Queen's University, and it was fantastic. You could get all the periodicals there, you get everything, and it closed, I think, with less than a week's notice. It was given no time to, you know, turn around or try and bring writers in and get meetings, anything. The bookshop in Belfast, the independent bookshop that does really well, is Litquake.m4v bookshop. I say little in size. It really punches above its weight. It's called No Alibis, and it gets crime writers in, has gigs, it sort of gets bands crammed in, and it's really popular. So it's doing well, but now in Belfast, we only have one bookstore, and that's a chain bookstore. So that's pretty sad. It's amazing walking around San Francisco today, and there are so many independent bookstores. It's been amazing. We've sort of been in a bit of a bookstore crawl, which is such a treat. So yeah, sorry, but in Northern Ireland things are a bit bleak.
Is that because of do you have ebooks now? I mean, is that turning big inroads there as well? The Kindles and things like that?
I think it's much slower over there, I think, than it is here. I mean, when you come over here, you're struck by the fact that you see people reading, using these things on public transport and that. You don't really see it so much at home.
Yeah.
Yes, I think would be the words, yeah. I mean, iPads and all these, and Kindles to a certain extent, but it doesn't seem to have taken off particularly. There's a kind of a sense at home that there's a sort of people are kind of holding their breath in publishing, just waiting to see what is actually going to happen. And the publishers, in particular, I think, are in a state of high anxiety because of that. From a writer's point of view, it's bad news that publishers are in a state of high anxiety. But, like, kind of occasionally when you start getting ideas above your station, you kind of think, well, they need material to actually fill these Kindles, surely. So it's not necessarily, surely somebody laughed when I said that. That's my understanding of it. It's in a state of flux, and I guess that's probably the same here. I mean, in Dublin, Waterstones, which are a big English chain, pulled out. Borders went. Borders had a couple of places, and they went as well. Hughes and one of the Irish big kind of chain ones went as well. I think actually in Dublin, a few independent stores have opened, and everybody's kind of has expected them to struggle, and actually they seem to do very well for exactly the same reasons for the reasons that independent bookstores do well, because it actually they're small spaces and it's personal selection and all that kind of stuff. And I think actually the growth in Ireland in bookstores is in that direction, which is actually kind of encouraging.
Yeah.
I think.